I know he was planning to join.
Mm.
Right, we're on air, folks. Welcome to the October WW1 Name Studies Hangout. Good morning, Paul. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Just waiting for anyone else to join who chooses to. I think we're expecting Mike Spatherkey. I think Karen Rogers down in Australia as well. But I've noticed, Paul, that when I send out an invite to join the Hangouts, it automatically now switches to this what's called quiet invitation, which I think means it doesn't send an email.
Yeah, I don't get one.
No, nor me. And that could be down to the fact that it's like an email list, and there's 219 people on it. So perhaps when you get to some magic number, they decide to default to quiet. And the point about the default is I can't disable the default. So I posted the link to the Hangout in the. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. So should we get started? Oh, what was that? That was a beep. Think, Chris, I did. Okay.
It's all right. I'm trying to do things.
Okay. Right. Several things that we can get through this morning if we have time, gentlemen. A couple of ideas I had about Family History Month. Find out if you do anything particular in terms of blogging or anything for that. Black History Month, I've got a personal interest in this, and whether you guys, as part of your one name study, have found folks with black ancestry in your one name studies.
Got some members of my Facebook group.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. Hey, good morning, John, and welcome.
Oh, good morning.
And thank you for sticking with us. Welcome back, so to speak.
Just out the renumber.
What was that sarky remark?
I said, did the renumber you?
No.
Saved by the bell. Well, welcome back, John. Glad to have you personally. Just running through the agenda, John. Some ideas really to stimulate conversation. It's Family History Month. I wondered what, if anything, folks are doing either with their own one-name studies or elsewhere in the genealogical world. Black History Month. Let's explore if you've got any black ancestors in your one-name study, and what, if anything, you're doing to commemorate that. World War I commemorations. Find out what, if anything, you guys are doing from a one-name study point of view. Just to mention, there's a call for speakers. I'll go through that. Details of the next seminar. A call for new committee members and some information that's available to help you decide. And last and by no means least, I can give you an update on the Federation of Family History Societies membership survey, and I'd love to collect your ideas on that. Were there any other topics or things you might want to discuss today, guys?
Not for me, thanks.
All right. Right, let's launch into it. Family History Month. I believe this is global. Personally,
global.
Okay, thank you, John. I can't. I just don't seem to be able to keep up with days of the year or special months. But nonetheless, if it's global, I saw the Australians are very active on this, and that's why I thought I'd make this agenda item number 1. So, Family History Month. What does it mean for your studies, or for other people doing genealogical or family history research?
Nothing whatsoever. Excuse me while I shut the door.
Well, that torpedoed that discussion item.
I hadn't even known it existed, so
right.
And it hasn't made any difference to what I'm doing, I must admit. That someone makes it a month or whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like the Black History or World War I, it kind of kicks one into into looking at certain aspects, but not that it's general family history.
Yes. Okay. Understood. I think some of the folks that perhaps are more active on the blogging and that side of it may use the Family History Month as a theme, but it seems pretty broad to me. So if it means nothing to 3, or probably 4 out of 4 of us, then let's move on rapidly onto Black History Month. Then, has that spurred any interest in your studies, or a particular person in your studies?
None whatsoever.
No, that's
I have
fantastic.
I have one potential. I've been person up in Lancashire in England, but it's only because someone has mentioned that somebody thought they were a bit darker or suntanned than usual. This is going back to the early 19th century, but I haven't been able to trace back where this person has come from, or whatever. So it could be that they came over, because we're talking Lancashire. We could be talking about the cotton trade. we could be talking about someone who's come over who was indentured over there or something. So I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but it is one of my to-do lists.
Excuse me.
One of the things to watch in my experience here with black folks in your one name study is particularly about what I would call mass migration. So after I think Barbados, Jamaica, sort of 50s to 60s, 1950s, 1960s, became independent, and for no other reason than some folks like to migrate around times of political change. Many folks, certainly post the war as well, that period onwards, migrated back to the UK to rejoin the forces. Females joined the nursing professions. So, any time after, I would say after the 50s and 60s, you can expect black folks from your one name study appearing in the UK. What it's meant for me, I did make a special effort, and I'd hoped by now that Gray Doyle, who I know you've probably read about in the journal, he was the bomb aimer on the Lancaster that crashed on the Leicestershire Nottinghamshire border. Decided to revisit that story, and found some really interesting bits and pieces. I got a question from I can't remember who it was, about whether or not I'd applied for Gray Doyle's service record, and I hadn't, but I have now, and I'm expecting that to, touch wood, arrive either today or Monday, because I really don't know his movements. Although I interviewed his sister and video recorded that, and that was quite revealing. I actually don't know what happened to Gray during his time in the RAF, so that should plug that gap. The other thing that I stumbled across, again purely by accident, was that there were 2 planes, 2 Lancasters that took off that morning that basically didn't make it home. One was thought to have been shot down somewhere near the target area of the Gironde on the west coast of France. And what discovered was there was a chap whose father served in the RAF, and he had a picture of the captain of the other Lancaster bomber, and he's basically, cutting a long story short, got a website dedicated to that one Lancaster. So I've made contact with him, and we've kind of shared some joint research and ideas about what potentially happened to his plane, because it was never seen again, although the pilot was found washed ashore on a little island in the Bay of Biscay. So clearly the plane was shot down. So I'm hoping to put that together, the service record together with the latest information I found on Gray Doyle, and even more luckily, I understand that the Imperial War Museum has got something like 3 or 4 photographs of the Lancaster ED 549, the one that crashed. Now I don't know whether it was pictures of the Lancaster before it crashed or after, or at the crash site. I suspect it's pictures of the newly delivered plane, but that seemed like a notable story, and I only really have a week or 2 to put it together, so I'm likely to have missed Black History Month. But for me, the point being, it kind of triggered me to revisit a story rather than try and do anything specific en masse.
I had a guy who lives in Canada, and I guess he's West Indian. I only guess, but because I don't know either way. And he came from St. Christopher, rather, his family come from St. Christopher Nevis.
Right.
And my great-grandfather and his father both visited in a professional capacity as Master Mariners, Sir Christopher Nevis. So maybe they had an association with the local population.
Got jiggy with it.
But he never became a member, and he didn't expand on it. And I did have contact in St Christopher and Nevis. There used to be a Law's bookshop, and I found the telephone number of this shop, so I rang it, and a girlie answered the phone, and I spoke to her, and she said, it was her father's shop, but he's retired, and but she couldn't go into any detail as to the historical background, where they got the surname from.
Mm.
Well,
that was the other.
They were obviously active there, you know.
I mean, those are the other destinations I meant to say with the mass migration after the 50s and 60s. Many went to Canada or to the US as well as the UK.
Yeah. I'm following up a RAF one at the moment, but I don't think it's a black one. It's it's strictly RAF because he was a BOAT man. They were picking up RAF personnel, bringing them back to UK in a Sunderland, which happened to crash in County Kerry, and he was one of the survivors. But I don't know anything in depth.
So, John, I would expect you to have quite a few black folks in the Caribbean, Jamaica, or Barbados, just because of the size of the name, geographically spread.
Yeah, I would guess I get loads. I mean, I know of those in the UK.
Right.
But I haven't yet persuaded anybody to join me or to expound on their family group.
Right.
In this country, we don't put the colour of one's skin in the census record.
No.
So I don't know what we are going back.
Indeed.
It's only family kind of gossip or something that will point you in that direction.
When you're doing the US census, it does identify them, and I don't like it. I might say I don't like it. I think no, indeed not. But I think most offensive.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah, I think they ought to report in ours whether you're Yorkshire or not. That's the one.
Well, yeah, I could go for that. Mind you.
It's funny actually because I had a comment about that this last month, because in Canada they give your
ethnic, French, English, yeah.
Yeah, they give you your heritage. Is it called heritage or something? So you can tell if they're Irish or English, which is a big help, really. Doesn't tell you what colour they are, but.
What about Paul? Paul, you mentioned that you've got some black folks called Featherstone.
No idea where they come from.
No idea at all.
No idea at all. No idea.
And presumably, Paul, you must. Sorry, Chris, you must have loads in the Caribbean.
Something to do with slaves, I would imagine.
Yeah, right. And presumably, Chris, you've got the same.
Probably, but I haven't looked in the Caribbean. I kind of went across the pond to North America, but I haven't actually headed south a bit to Middle America or whatever one calls that part of the world. But no, so I haven't dropped down there to find out.
Okay. Well, moving swiftly on then, World War I commemorations. But two things here. It was interesting, John, that you're looking at an RAF person, and I'm doing the same. One of the interesting byproducts of the World War I military commemoration has been, and I don't know if you agree, but renewed interest amongst us and certainly folks that I've had contact with around World War II as well.
Yeah, I'm extracting from my database into a file ready to go into my blog all laws that were casualties of World War One. I'm not including those that served who weren't casualties, only the casualties. And there is a colossal number of them. It's phenomenal. And I suppose I'm about halfway through. And I'm also extracting the World War II ones as well. And
so John, when you say extract, what do you actually mean? Was I've kind of just listed all those in the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and I'm looking to find, as I know there must be thousands on the other side as well. So I need to find a source of those. But all I do is list them. Do you go further?
Yeah, well, I do. I endeavour to find out who they were, who their parents were, whether they were married, and whether there was any issue with that marriage, and add their story, their family story, to my database. But it's not easy because not only does Commonwealth World Graves doesn't list them all. It doesn't give details to all either.
No, some's very, very, very slim.
I suppose it depends on what they've been given or being able to find out.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, how would you guys go about putting together a list of World War One, let's say, soldiers? Because as John mentioned, the Commonwealth War Graves Commission lists those that served and died. There are those that served that became injured. There are those that served that survived. So I guess the broad question for the viewers who will watch this subsequently, morning Mike, is how do you go about putting together a list of folks that contributed to the war? What sources do you use?
Well, on the Allies side, I start with the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, and I've also gone through the higher level medal rolls like the Victoria Cross and things like that, and then gone back and looked at those in the Gazette and followed that through. There weren't many of those, but the trouble I've got is looking at the people on the Axis side. There seems to be very little, or there's growing evidence, of who was on the Austrian and German side, but that I find a big hole into what's there. And again, you don't hear about the wounded unless it's in an article by somebody. So that's what I do. I start with the Commonwealth War Graves. I look for the medals of valour, and now I'm looking for other online sources.
There's a online source of war memorials by village virtually, and it's
yes, I've just seen the one that's been made public online for Northumberland. It's a particular town in Northumberland that's just been made. Someone has scanned in the memorial book and put it online.
Well, there is a nationwide site. I cannot remember the name of it.
Yeah, there's one for Durham as well.
Yeah.
That lists all the like the cenotaphs and stuff.
Yeah, well, it's memorials over and above that. The ones that appear in church halls and in schools, and there's even one in Sheffield Railway Station somewhere. I can't find it. When I went there last time, I searched for this.
Oh, I found it a few years ago, and there wasn't a grey on it. So.
No.
And there isn't one at Waterloo Station either. And for such a frequently occurring name, I'm always amazed when I don't find it.
Good morning, June. Good morning, Mike. Just to bring you up to speed, we're on to World War One memorials, World War II memorials, and basically how you would go about putting together a list of soldiers or people who served in World War One or World War II, what sources you would go through. So we'll come to you in a second because it'll also be interesting to hear what's available across the Allies, because it's been very UK centric so far. But there's obviously Canada, the US, Australia, New Zealand, to name a few more.
And the other side, of course.
And yes, you're quite right. Chris has mentioned the Axis side. Paul, how would you go about it?
You mean the enemy?
Yeah, but not including the French.
And I'm going to put the Italians down as neutral because my mum was Italian, my grandfather served, so he was on both sides.
No, I don't agree with that.
No, I'll go. Okay, fair enough. Paul, how would you go about putting together a list? What sources do you use?
Probably the burnt records, medal cards, Commonwealth war graves as well. But I actually have got a great uncle on my father's side, on my father's maternal side, who won the military medal, and I cannot find why. How I even got the company war diary, and it still doesn't tell me why he won it. So that was a big disappointment to me. But I've even got a watch he was presented from work for winning the medal and a bar. And it still doesn't tell you why he won it. So
yeah, perhaps we can return to that, unless you want to tackle it now. How would you folks recommend that Paul finds out how to determine why a soldier received a distinction, a Medal of Honor, perhaps?
It's in the regimental history.
it's not in there. I even cost me 30 quid as well. Really disappointed.
Any other suggestions? What's worked for you if you've done this kind of research before? What worked for you? Paul's mentioned that a regimental diary, history.
Yeah. Local newspapers.
Yeah,
that's what the only thing I haven't done. Because they're not online. I need to go down to the library and have a look.
It was that proved to give the answer for one of my folks who was awarded the military medal. So that it's obvious, the medal index card will have the decoration often cited on it, whether it's a VC, MM for a military medal, for example. And that's the first clue. They're always mentioned in the London or Edinburgh Gazette, the Edinburgh Gazette being a repeat of the London one. So that's the official record that a soldier was awarded the medal. Yeah, right. But what that doesn't tell you is what they did. And the issue is the citation awards were lost. Were destroyed during enemy action, I believe, in World War II. So the most fruitful source that I found has been local newspapers, providing that the local newspaper covered it. I've got one Cumberbatch, for example, that won the I think it was a military cross. It may have even been the Victoria Cross. But he was in a Yorkshire regiment, but he was from Hampshire. And I don't know which local paper to search. A casual search of the online sources has not revealed him being mentioned. But what else? If anyone's got any other ideas about how to flesh out what a soldier did to deserve a military honour? Nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, let's return back to the question. So we've talked about which sources you would use to build a list of soldiers. Medal index cards have been mentioned. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission that lists the war dead. Service records. The London Gazette's now been mentioned. War memorials and newspapers. Are there any other major sources that can help you build a list of folks that you might be interested in researching?
Can I come in here, Bob?
Of course.
Can I suggest, Mike Spathaki here, speaking from Sydney. Can I suggest that you look at the excellent records of the National Australian Archives at, if you've got a pen, naa.gov.au. I'm sorry, I can't read the thing now. It seems to have gone. World War One, WW. Anyway, Google it. NAA is National Australian Archives, and if you put in NAA WW1 or something like that, you'll and you can put a surname search in, and you'll get a list of all the occurrences of that surname in the records. And at each one, there is an item title, and I have the list in front of me that comes up. And I've got an item title here which says Cree. I've put in the name Cree, and the title is Cree Gordon James Application for Passports (brackets Seaman's Document of Identity) close brackets includes photograph (brackets 1 page). That's just one example. Now maybe he isn't a military personnel. Let me just find Cree Douglas Harry, and it gives his service number 60337. Place of birth, Glasgow, Scotland. Place of enlistment, Sydney, NSW. Next of kin, F. Cree Adam. And then there's a symbol looking like a page of print, and you actually click on that, and you'll get facsimile of his full military record. One person who I looked into recently had I think it was 40 pages in his military record of index cards, letters, and so on. Are you hearing me all right, John?
Yeah, fine, beautiful.
Yeah. I've actually entered his service history, his story, into the Guild WW1 website. But this was 2 days ago. It hasn't come up in the list of latest entries. I don't know who's running that site. Do you? Does anyone know?
I thought it was the webmaster, but there's been some subdivision of I think responsibilities between, let's call it, the old and the new.
I think Nigel Osborne has made it very clear that he's just looking after the transition of the website to WordPress and not any other aspect. And
Okay.
his team is involved in that only as well. So I'm not sure who else it is. But anyway, if no one knows, not to worry. I'll ask Anne Shanklin. She's sure to know. She knows everything.
Another source is the Red Cross, because they have records of returning prisoners of war and things like that, which is very useful. And of course, it includes all the other people that were involved, like merchant seamen.
Brilliant. Okay. And Mike, you mentioned the National Archives of Australia. I've used that site as well to find actually World War II service records, which has been fantastic.
Yes, they do. They do both. They do all service records. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're available. I think they've been scanned, as you mentioned. The ones I had access to have been scanned and freely available.
Yeah,
which
that's right.
Tremendous. And I don't have experience of it, but perhaps some of you do. Is the same kind of stuff available for New Zealand and Canada? Do you know?
I haven't looked into that yet. I think I've got some stuff about New Zealand, but I think it was sent to me from a Cree from New Zealand, and I don't think I've looked at the records directly. I can't remember for sure.
I pulled a couple of Featherstones off a website in the last month.
To be honest, as in the UK, there are several sites with military records in Australia, and it's important to get to the primary source, which is the National Archives of Australia.
Okay, great. Thank you for that, folks. Any more suggestions? Let me round up the list that I've heard so far. The biggest, let's say, gap for now, and we'll come to this in a second, is the axis, if you like, the the other side. So sources that would be useful in helping you build a list of one-name study folks to research for World War I or World War II potential sources. The Commonwealth War Graves Commission that lists folks who have died in both World War I and World War II. That's international in scope, includes all countries, I believe. Medal index cards, which I believe are available on Ancestry. They will list the soldiers who were awarded medals. There are special roles for distinction or injuries, like the Silver War Badge, for example, and a limited number, something like 40% of soldiers' service records. London Gazette, Edinburgh Gazette, provides details of folks that were promoted or received gallantry medals, for example. There are websites with war memorials, tend to be very village-centric. Newspapers can be useful in fleshing out service details and particularly gallantry awards, as can be regimental war diaries, if you're very, very lucky, or regimental war histories, I should say, regimental histories, which are often published. And some of you will have seen the War Diaries project that the Imperial War Museum are doing. Folks are actively transcribing those as we speak. For other territories, Australia, National Archives of Australia, very, very useful. The Red Cross, I believe, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, the Red Cross Prisoner of War is both sides?
I believe so.
Yeah, I thought so
It's
as
an
well.
international Red Cross. It does a lot.
Yeah, okay, great. And then there's New Zealand and Canada. Not sure exactly what's available in those territories, but as Mike says, try to get to the National Archives sites, as they will have the primary sources of service records.
I came across a site, a U-boat site, which describes the recordings of the ships that were sunk and who was in command and all that sort of thing. I found that quite useful, actually.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder, John. That site is very useful. It tends to list the ships that were sunk by U-boats and the crews on those ships.
And I think it's a German site, so it's on, or if it's not, it's very much from their point of view.
And yes, and going back, because there are some very good German naval history, formal naval histories, which list the crews of the U-boats. Now, I haven't seen it for decades. I found it before I was interested in family history. I must go back and look for it again. But they are the formal naval histories.
What was the Australian site again, please, Mike? I'll perhaps you put it in the chat box.
National Archives of Australia.
National Archives of Australia, yeah.
It's naa.gov.au.
Yeah, got it. I'm sure I've been there before, but it's always well worth having another look.
Okay, thank you, folks. I thought that was a very useful expose on the sources that folks might use to identify the military. On a related topic, what about the let's say the non-fighting side of stuff? Have you found sources for, say, hospital records for the nurses and doctors, or people who served in munitions factories? Do you have any recommendations of sources that would be useful for, let's say, the support effort to the military side of things?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
What
Anyone?
about the National Arboretum? For the UK, there's a national memorial site just north of Birmingham, Lichfield, is it? Which was set up, I don't know, 10 years ago, and it's meant to be a memorial for everybody, and it includes people like the firefighters, the police, etc., etc. And I think it comes up to the current day, so I think it goes from World War I. So I don't think it goes down to the Boer War or the original Afghan wars. I think it's from World War One upwards, but it does cover not just military. Now, to what extent? I know there are memorial plinths for things like the firemen and the police, and they have the names on them. But whether I know all the other services in inverted commas are covered, but to what degree they're named, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm trying to find, amongst others, of course, a chap who died in Germany post World War II, and was buried in Germany. There was no the family didn't recover his body to the UK, and the Air Force or the Army, I'm not sure which. I can't find whether there was a military inquest or not, and I think they're keeping stum.
Yeah, is that the one you mentioned on the forum, John?
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of the forum, what happens to the mail? It seems to be very slow at the moment, and some don't appear at all.
Some of it I find it's either RootsWeb itself, because I get them batched up, and I find, for example, the Northumberland mail all comes in a group.
Yeah.
And Society of Genealogists all comes in a group. So they seem to store them up. But the bit that annoys me is that you can sometimes get the source email days after the replies. Which annoys me, but it's not just our forum, it's everything on RootsWeb.
Yeah, because I posted one yesterday that hasn't appeared. Well, I posted it twice, and it hasn't appeared either time. The bounce back to me anyway hasn't appeared.
What was it about, John?
Let me have a look. I cannot remember.
I know sometimes I've sent 3 or 4 of the same one just to make sure that I've actually, have I remembered to not use
HTML.
RTF. I have, if I've used HTML by mistake, so I kind of.
Yeah, well,
and then I tend to, and that's just RootsWeb throwing it out. It's nothing to do with that.
You're getting into trouble for that.
Yeah, but that's RootsWeb. There's nothing to do with our forum.
Oh, it will, because our Wendy will sort you out for that.
Yes, because RootsWeb throws it out, tells her about it, and then she's got to manage it.
Now, what?
And that's everything. A number of RootsWeb sites, the forum manager won't even tell you about it. It just won't appear. It just they put it on automatic stop. So we're quite lucky with someone who actually looks after these things and gives us a hint.
There's that link on the group chat thing is a good German one if you're looking. I don't think there's anything online, but there's all sorts of contact numbers and.
Yeah, and I'm also after France, because France doesn't seem to have a national World War II or World War One either.
Yeah, I found it. It's just titled Bernard William Laws, Sydney G Laws, sent out at 1400 and 2200 yesterday, and neither of them have come back, so it hasn't appeared.
Well, I don't see mine.
Thanks for that list. I'll open it.
Yeah, it's, that was a guy who I found them in family in shipping lists, and I tracked them. They appeared to come from Kenya to the UK, probably for the royal wedding, not for the royal wedding, for the coronation in '53, and then appeared on the he appeared on the 1960 shipping list with a different woman, same children, and also I've got another one. And what I was trying to find out if anybody knew of how one finds deaths and marriages and births, for that matter, that were in Kenya or other colonies or ex-colonies. Someone was saying that there was a part of the GRO for overseas people, but I've not ever come across it. Do you know?
Yes, there is, John. So birth, marriages and deaths registered in British overseas territories, for want of a better word, military as well, are indexed separately. And I believe Find My Past are the only folks that have that, maybe the genealogists, but it's not available on Free BMD.
Well, I couldn't find it on Find My Past.
Oh, right, okay. Can I have it? Yeah, what I'll do then is I'll look it up, John. I know Find My Past has changed.
Yeah, a bit just.
Yeah,
I was a very much very loyal to Find My Past until they changed, and I went to Ancestry, and I'm afraid I've stayed with Ancestry. I'm going to cancel my Find My Past subscription.
Thank you. Well, what I've waited for has arrived.
Oh, good.
Your call-up papers, Bob. Is it?
Yeah, they're calling up
I've done
old vets. Sorry,
I've done my service. They can't get me.
They're obviously call-up papers for old senile vets. Not that I ever worked with animals, but okay. I've completely lost my thread now.
Shall I just jump in? Can I just jump in?
You come in, Mike. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this has been mentioned, but it's www.irishwarmemorials.ie. So this is a register, and it's fairly new, I think, of Irish war memorials, searchable, that gives everyone named on a memorial in Ireland. At least it will when it's finished. You have to remember that in World War II that Ireland was neutral.
Whatever that means.
And also that in 1922, 1921-2 or thereabouts, they had a bloody civil war, and Irish memorials in the Republic of Ireland, after the Civil War, it was agreed that the dead of both sides in the Civil War would be commemorated in each town's war memorial. And if you've been to Ireland, you'll have seen these all over Ireland. The war memorials generally commemorate the dead of both sides, not distinguished which side they were on, but named on the war memorials.
John, was it national deaths overseas you were looking for?
Yeah.
Well, they're on Find My Past. I've just found them.
Have you?
1818 to 2005.
1818 to 2005? Oh, I didn't know that.
And there's another set for military as well, which is in the kind of same area that Paul has found, and they do predate the Free BMD, sort of start at 1837. They're worth a look. They do tend to be indexed by year, not by quarter. And if you're really lucky, you can see you can see the baptisms in scanned images of those are available on the genealogists. So these are folks that have been baptized in, for the sake of argument, in the parish. In a Church of England chapel in Paris, for example, attached to the British Embassy there. They can be fruitful. Same thing for other territories also.
There's one in Thailand, one in Brazil, one in Uruguay, two in Argentina, one in Spain, and all the rest are at sea.
These are laws, are they, Paul?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, these are on the land in Kenya.
So there's none in Kenya.
I heard on the radio the other day about the Scottish football team that was shipwrecked on a way to a friendly against the Canary Islands. They got shipwrecked in the middle of the Bay of Biscay, and it's the only. I just wonder whether there are any. I was going to look up the names of the players just in case there's a grey in there somewhere, but it's a great thing to have on the website. But apparently, it's the only team to have been shipwrecked in the International Football League, or whatever they call themselves.
Oh, fantastic! What a story. Right, any more comments on the World War I, World War II military associations? Thanks for that list. What I'll do is I'll compile that list and add it as comments to the bottom of the Hangout on air to help folks. That's quite a comprehensive list. But before we move away, and because you've mentioned it, Chris, for our benefit, can you give us some introduction to what you've just discovered on the Axis side of record availability? Oh, you're muted, Chris.
No, not a lot. I mean, the website that was it Paul has just put up is very good. And it does explain that most of the German records were destroyed during World War II. So the only ones there are some that survived. The Navy one survived, which is where I found my stuff, I suspect. But I haven't looked at, for example, Austria, Italy, and the others. The reason I'm interested is because someone mentioned, I don't know where it was, on the forum or something. Oh, I know, it's one of these websites where you put the name in and it tells you what frequency the name is around the world. And there was a significant number of greys, or with an A or an E, in Germany. And I thought, oh well, I better start looking. And so that's what interested me. And with the Guild going in for looking at World War I thought, oh, well, this is an opportunity to trigger the research into that area. But it's only just scratching the surface at the moment. But it was a bit disappointing to hear that we bombed their archives. We should have left that out when the RAF were over the top. They should have said, no, we'll leave that building.
Sorry, go on.
It's a bit like the burnt records, isn't it? If the Germans had known when they went over the top, they would have left that out. They would have not have bombed that bit.
My experience with researching Italian World War I soldiers has led me to what I would call regional archives, so a bit like county archives. Unless things have radically changed in Italy, most things, a bit like France and Spain, are kept regionally to some extent, and there are regional archives. But I was able to get my ancestors' World War I service record from there. Obvious difficulties in translating other languages. How did you handle that, Chris?
I'm muted again, right? No, I did. I found that the online archive things are very good. Also, there are people in the Guild who volunteer, and I just present them a decent scan, and they will. Often I just ask for a summary, but I get a word for word, which is amazing. Unfortunately, my father's no longer with us, because he spoke fluent French and German, but he didn't pass that on to me. So yes, it's the Guild. It's just asking for volunteers, and it's amazing what one can find.
Right, thank you, folks. Any other comments on?
I was quite surprised that German site's all in English.
No, well, I just switched it on. When I logged on, it said, what language do I want it in?
No, it just came straight up with me.
Oh, it just knows from your geography that
yeah, that's right.
There's no hope in hell of speaking anything.
Speaking German up there.
It's ein Berliner.
Yes, memories.
Right, thank you, folks. Appreciate that. Because Mike and Chris are on, gentlemen, would you like to give us an update on the preservation proposal? Nothing secret as such, but any update for us?
Well, shall I come in here?
You might as well.
Yeah. There's a team of 7. One or two. One is rather intermittent, due to other commitments. But there's a team of 7 who've been working away very hard, producing the plan which the committee requested at its September meeting to be produced by in time for the November meeting. In fact, the secretary wanted in 10 days from now.
Oh, Mike, are you there? You're frozen.
Flop.
It was the censor that came in, got him.
I think the word.
No. There's the team have been meeting throughout, on and off throughout the last few weeks. There's a
Chris?
It's what we're doing is we've been asked to produce a plan for the committee, which basically says what it is we intend to do, by when, and how much.
Of what?
What the scope of this guild preservation thing is, and part of the plan which we need to get approved is what the scope is. So we can't until what is public at the moment is what was presented to the last committee meeting, and once we know what the scope is, we will be able to communicate to the membership as to exactly what this is and what we're talking about. At the moment, we haven't got any approval to go forward, so nothing will happen until the committee has approved it in November.
Yeah, John, there were originally 3 proposals or 3 parts of the overall proposal, I should say. The first part is about preserving members' studies. This is all about electronic study, one-name study preservation. Part 1 is about the Guild tackling preservation of a member's web presence, website consisting of HTML pages. The second is about preserving a one-name study website built upon a CMS. And the third piece is about preservation of members' studies that are built into family history trees using a GEDCOM. At a broad level, the committee agreed with the proposal holistically and those 3 options, and is willing to sponsor a 2-year trial where some of the details of how this stuff will work in anger will be fleshed out. But asked for a sort of outline plan of what the trial would consist of over the next 2 years, and that's what the team of 7 have been fleshing out. What it will cost, what the Guild needs to provide by way of resources, financial or otherwise, make available as subdomain.
Yeah, this is you're talking about websites.
Yeah.
But old websites are accessible anyway, aren't they?
No.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Yes,
they're not all there, John.
Well, some of us are not all there now.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because I had this off to the Americans on my one Hangouts. No, I did have it because I found. And I'll forget.
Yeah, one example, John, is if your website, if you were no longer willing to look after your Guild website, your one-name study website, for whatever reason, could someone else take it over? Now, legacy websites do exist forever. There are internet archives. So if it's been published, you can probably find it.
Yeah.
But whether you can then take that and evolve it and move it forward as part of a study moving forward is another kettle of fish.
Absolutely. I think if it's dead, it's dead.
Yes, but if you've agreed with the Guild that you want your study passed on to the next person in the line. These are all things that are being debated, discussed. What's feasible? What's realistic? What's affordable? What can the technology deliver? That's all being looked at.
Yeah, that's digital, of course.
Yeah, we've missed the analog websites we don't look at. So I don't know who had those in the past, but we concentrate on the digital websites.
I don't know what an analog website is.
Well, it's before your time.
Yeah, us old fogies. Us really old fogies.
What's an analog website, for God's sake?
Yeah, I've got the same question.
I've got an analog phone sitting up there somewhere.
That's the subject of another hangout.
Okay, fair enough. I guess it's when family trees were chiselled out on rocks, but I've no idea.
I don't remember that.
Okay, good. Anything you want to add, Chris, to the outline of the proposal?
No, not at this stage. We've got a hangout going on tomorrow evening, which is looking at the second draft of the plan. Things might be added, things might be taken out. So, preempting in a public domain like this is not very fair on anybody.
Okay, understood. Yeah, thank you for that. I'm glad to hear that the work continues. It did have broad support from committee. It's great to see members working together to achieve something without depending upon the committee. So good job. I guess the next thing we could talk about, a few quick announcements. I suspect it won't impact many of you, but call for speakers for who do you think you are. John, I've got to ask you, remember you're being recorded, so be nice, no biting, no scratching. How was who do you think you are in Glasgow?
Yes. It was very sad, actually. I have discussed this with a number of people, that the organisers set their rates at such a level that the clan societies didn't attend, which is in homecoming year was a bit bad, don't you think? The venue is a lot smaller than Olympia, but the facilities in this venue are vastly superior. Vastly. Good catering facilities. You could come out of the hall and they stamped your hand so that you could get back in into the vendor hall. And there were excellent catering facilities in the building. But as I say, there was one clan society, that was Clan Stewart. There was only 2 English county societies represented, that was Suffolk and Northampton. So I think it was good, but it left some desired. I hope that when they do the NEC one, that it will be better than Olympia and dance better than Glasgow. And the other thing is, I understand that not doing another Glasgow one for 2 years. And what entertained them on that one, I just do not know. Seems somebody who's got a screw loose.
Okay. Well, thanks for that, John. What was the attendance like? Good turnout?
Yeah, I would say so. In so much as there was limited publicity. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. Well, who do you think you are next year, as John has outlined, is at the NEC in Birmingham. It's not in London. It had to be shifted away from London because of refurbishing works that's going on at Earl's Court. The venue Olympia being booked. So who do you think you are hits the road and goes to the Midlands? And
good move.
Yeah, some folks some folks think it's good. Some folks don't, as always.
Well, it's got excellent communications. It's got an airport right against it. It's got rail links. and good bus links.
Yeah, and I've got free accommodation at my son's.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I can fly from Edinburgh to Birmingham.
Well, without the plane, or?
Yeah, without the plane, yeah.
Well, there's a call for speakers. If you're interested in an application form, let me know. That needs to be with the Society of Genealogists by next week, a week today. Next seminar, early November, the next generation, or the next stage, I should say, for One Name Studies. So it's a One Name Studies organised or focused topic arranged by Kim Baldacchino. Looks like an interesting agenda. So that's going on early November. And the last announcement, the information for new committee members has been updated and is available on the website. If you're interested or thinking about becoming a committee member, then I will post a link to that in the bottom area of where this event is on Google+. And last and by no means least, I thought I would share with you where I had to dash off to last time on our Hangout. I attended a Federation of Family History Societies meeting, and there was a preliminary discussion run by a guild member who's become the education officer, and basically the guild is a member of the Federation, and Federation members, in other words, regional family history societies, are suffering from, let's say, some mega trends. Those trends are that members are falling, family history society membership numbers are falling, which is impacting their revenue and the ability to survive, and fewer folks are helping out regional family history societies on committee. So there was a call for ideas and success stories about which family history societies are being successful in either bucking or reversing those trends, and what are, for want of a better word, what are the secrets of a family history society success story. So I was asked to compile some answers on behalf of the guild, and needless to say, we have increased our members. We haven't necessarily kept them all, but we have been able to attract new members, on average, since the guild formed, about 190 or so a year, I should say, and more recently it's exceeded 200 odd per annum. So I wanted to get your thoughts about, are you members of a family history society? If so, which one or ones? Why have you joined a family history society, and what benefits would you enjoy or want to enjoy from a family history society if it's not local to you?
Well, I was in two. I was in my local one now, but when I was living in Birmingham, and then I was in the Shropshire one because that's where my mother's family comes from, and I've given up both because I'm concentrating on one name study, really. There you go.
Well, I'm in the East Lothian. I've attended one meeting. It's not very practical from here. I have to drive, and I rarely use the car now. With excellent communications generally here, but not in that part of the. They hold it over near Dalkeith somewhere, and Laswade. That's it, Laswade. And that's really it.
What about you, Chris?
I was just thinking, the one that I know I'm a member of, because I get the magazine now and again, is the Yorkshire one, and they do have an offshoot in London. So it's itself. Why? It's probably because they do actually publish a lot of very useful stuff, and it hasn't all been offloaded to one of the big boys like Ancestry or Find My Past. It's got a very good journal, which has its, like any other journal, has its ups and downs. But yeah, no, I agree. I really believe in supporting these ones. This one looks a very good one. My family is from Yorkshire, and the data that they've been researching has been first class.
Can I pass a couple of things by you, Bob?
Of course, John.
Is there anybody representing the Guild attending Roots Tech NGS conference in Salt Lake City in 2015?
Yes, there's a bunch going.
Oh, great. And the other thing was, you were talking about membership falling on societies and that. And I'm just looking at the stats that I've got off my blog. And I've been running it since June. So, in indication of, I've got more hits on my blog from Germany than I have from the UK. I've 3 times as many from the USA as I have from the UK. And I've almost just, well, the others that are below are strange because the French are coming up very fast. So there's somebody in France who's looking at my blog every day.
Well, it's an interesting point, which kind of leads nicely on to, the second part of the question. Let me answer it myself. I am not a member of a family history society, and it's all a bit bizarre, really. If I could, if I was to become one, Cheshire would be the appeal because that's the home, the birthplace of my surname, so to speak. But I find each time I look at the benefits, there's actually little in it for me because I can't get to the meetings, I can't get to the libraries, I can't get to the source material so readily. I could join societies nearer where I live, but I just happen to live in Kent. I don't necessarily have any, even one name study research to do in Kent, so I'm in this quandary. But the question then becomes, what benefits would you like to see a family history society provide for you to attract you as a member? And John's, I believe, I don't want to put words in your mouth, John, but I think you're alluding to the fact that maybe the future for these folks is sharing knowledge online.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, but not free, because who's going to, part of the problem is they've got to keep the organisation together. So if they spend years and years of effort transcribing parish records, and then give them away, it means they're not going to get any members, and therefore they can no longer exist.
Yeah. That fair I went to in Pudsey, the guy next to me, I think it was West Yorkshire or Wakefield or somewhere like that, and they were actually giving away their 1841 census transcriptions because they couldn't sell them.
No.
I've got about 40 copies, all in little booklets.
I might, to bring you up to speed, I went last time, I went to the Federation of Family History Society, an educational preliminary meeting. A couple of, let's say, mega trends that family history societies are suffering with. They're suffering with falling members, falling revenues, and falling numbers of people willing to serve on committees. And they were asking, how do, let's say, other societies that are either bucking or reversing the trend, what are the secrets of their success? And I compiled a reply on behalf of the Guild of One Name Studies, and it basically showed that we are attracting new members, somewhere between 190 and maybe 230 each year. We don't obviously keep them all, but nonetheless, one of the three most popular ways that we have of recruiting folks to join our society is through family history fairs, events, that kind of thing. Word of mouth, recommendations to other genealogists, for example, and to some extent the internet. Those three are the most successful ways of having folks become aware of the Guild. The benefits that folks talked about in the survey that we ran last year was largely around being able to dip into expertise, and I think Chris mentioned an example earlier about translations, for example. So the question is, what's the secret of our success? And John outlined what's been successful for him in his one name study, and it's been an online blog that he publishes regularly, and he's picking up hits from Germany, USA, much more than the UK. So the question.
Yeah, I'll just run down the list to give you an indication of the places that I've picked where people have logged on to my site. Now it's bizarre. The USA is the most, then Germany, then the UK, then Russia, then France, then Turkey, then Ukraine, then Australia, then Canada, then Ireland, then Poland, China, Netherlands, Romania, Portugal, Sweden, Italy, Brazil, Finland, South Africa, Ghana, Slovenia, Singapore, Indonesia, Taiwan, Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Switzerland, India, Iraq, South Korea, Kazakhstan, Spain, Ecuador, Hungary, Kenya, Jordan, Zimbabwe, Lithuania, Serbia, Japan, Algeria, Philippines, Venezuela, Honduras, Thailand, and today Mexico.
Wow.
Part of where I find problems with some of the societies, they're very parochial.
Yeah.
And you sometimes get turned off their mailing lists because you want to talk not just about pure genealogy or something. And I think part of the benefit of the Guild is, on the whole, we can talk about, before the a stop is called the conversation, but we can talk about anything like you know, the impact of the Greys on football teams, and what's life like in St Christopher and Nevis, or whatever. That we're quite broad church in what we can actually talk about, whereas I find some of the societies are very, very parochial. And I think that's killing some of them off, unless they turn into experts in their area. So there are local societies, like there's one in Devon looking at an area I'm interested in, and they're setting themselves up as the real experts in that area. Everything, hearth taxes, to who were the landowners, where the farms were, who moved in, who moved out, etc., etc. And I think that's what societies have got to be. They've got to become experts in their area, not just a society of like-minded individuals.
That's a very valid point. And I joined the Clan Society as well. I hadn't mentioned that. I should have done. Clan McLaren.
Yeah, I also go to my local library. We have a group every month. But I am the experts. I tend to help everybody else.
Yeah,
Remind me not to go then.
I mean, that's my intuition on the space also. I tend to agree entirely with what Chris has said. You know, the ability to dip into a team of expertise, particularly local, that knows, you know, in depth church history, for example, whether the registers are deposited or not, for example. Okay, I know that's an acute example, but occupational sources and the relevance of occupations and the changing demographics over time, for example, for an area like Chris has said, local history, hard tax, landowners. I think the who owned land will become very significant when we get to the period before church records commenced, if you're lucky enough to get back that far. But love to hear any more ideas you have to share with the Fed and the local family history societies, because my view is if you do it online, it'll be easier for us to both join the discussion but also participate. The way that we individually do our studies, you end up becoming experts in something, obviously some area of interest that some of your folks do or experience. One of the issues I have with, let's say, the genealogical part of this is that, okay, let's assume someone lives till 70, you've got a birth, a marriage and a death, you've got 3 days and a 70-year life cycle. What about the other major significant parts of their life? What were they doing? And to some extent...
Well, I'm going to live longer than 70.
But any other thoughts or ideas you have here, guys?
Well, one of the other things is I'm thinking of joining. There's a society in North America, Virginia, I think it is, and they hold their meetings online.
Yeah, that's the way forward.
That sounds fantastic. I mean, they're trying out different technologies at the moment because they have their meetings in a hall. And then we're a bit like the Guild did with the AGM. They then open it up, and they're trying different technologies like Join Me and trying to work out what is best, what works, etc. That's great.
This is undoubtedly the best for virtual meetings. We do that, as you know, you probably know, I do Mondays with Mert. Every Monday I try and appear, subject to I can get in. I have to be there early. And that is a thing. I mean, I have to get there early to get in. Now, that shows it's popular. We have, in the Hangout, we have 10. Sometimes we have... another 10 waiting in the shadows, watching in, and who we scramble in the middle. Some scramble out and others scramble in, and then there's several hundred that are watching live, and then it's recorded on YouTube, and it's the world is your oyster.
Mike, if I can put you on the spot, given that you're so far from the UK, if a local family history society were to appeal to you, let's say the origins of the Cree study, or perhaps influential occupations for your folks, the Cree one-name study, what would a local family history society or a local interest group have to provide you with access to for it to become appealing for you to join that organisation?
Well, I have in the past been a member of several county societies, including Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire, and Tayside Family History Society in Scotland, because many of the Cree, the biggest Cree line, has its origins in Perth, in Scotland. But it seems to me there's not much. I mean, there's not much appeal. That's why I'm not a member now. They've been overtaken, in a sense, by the big providers, such as Ancestry, and you know, the main draw was their you know, their lists of members' interests, their booklets of parish records and MIs and things like that, and those were very useful at the time. But I can get all that on Ancestry now. I mean, I think it's a pity, but I don't see a future role for county societies. Added to which, a one-name study crosses so many boundaries, not just county to county, but country to country. There was far more migration than I ever imagined. You know, I thought that general migration started with the introduction of the railways, but it seems to me it started earlier, really, and you know, about 1700, people started to be on the move. Mass migration from Scotland to the north of Ireland, and other parts of Ireland, mass migration from there to North America, and so on and so on. So there's a limited value for county societies, in my view. I hope I'm not treading on anyone's toes, but it doesn't surprise me that they're losing membership, declining membership, and declining income, because their income, apart from membership, of course, was from selling booklets, and those are the sort of records that are now duplicated elsewhere.
I mean, just to be fair to the family history societies, that some of them have been able to, let's say, syndicate their content. For example, some of these indexes have found their way onto things like Find My Past or onto ancestry, and these guys do earn some revenue via federation contracts. So they have been able to monetize or find an alternative source of revenue, let's put it that way, by monetizing their indexes. But, you know, once those indexes are available via one of those sites, you know, their ability to sell a CD is impacted, for example.
Yeah, that's right.
But it does make that data set available to a much broader international audience. So I don't think, I can't speak because I'm not close to the Family History Society's finances as such. I don't think these guys are complaining necessarily about declining revenues per se, although that's something they're concerned about. I think they're probably primarily concerned about folks not joining their organisations. And my gut feel is that with TV programs like Who Do You Think You Are, going international, and having been so for so long, and this topic of genealogy and family history being, or having such a high interest rate, there must be a broader pool of people to attract if these guys did more stuff, in my opinion, online. But
there is, if anyone is involved in a family history society, a geographically defined family history society, I think the model to look at, and it's not a county, but it's almost equivalent, is the Ulster Historical Foundation, because they have really embraced the web, and they get a lot of income from the pay-per-view and subscription services that they run online. So, you know, that's invaluable for Irish research. But the Irish situation is somewhat different from the English in that many more records are not online. You know, there are a lot of parish records that have not been transcribed and put online, and the Ulster Historical Society have been in the forefront of transcribing them and making them available, and making income out of it. By the way, I'm not sure at what point I lost you all, because I was watching the little picture of myself, which seemed to keep moving. But I realised I was cut off, my connection was lost, and I had to reboot my modem and my computer to get back again. The connection here in Australia is not as good as my one in England. So did someone else fill in from where I left off?
Well, Chris sort of filled in after you dropped out, so you might just be repeating what he said.
Yeah, I mean, Chris basically just said it's too soon. He's not. Now's not the right time to make a formal report recorded online for the membership. But he outlined that there's 7 folks exploring in detail how to take the trial forward. But
Yeah.
thanks for your comments. I think another organisation that I feel or two organisations I feel naturally attracted to. I like what FIBIS are doing, the Families in British India Society.
Yes.
I don't necessarily think it's because it's broader in terms of subject matter or more appealing to us, but that's probably one organisation that I will eventually join when I
I have joined. It's very good,
okay.
but not for my one name study. It's for the rest of my family history side.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting society. So
And there's another one which I'm thinking of, which is because there are a lot of Greys who are Romanis, and I know when I joined them, it'll be opening a can of worms because it's a very frequently occurring name in that society. But I think that's a way to go.
well, that's brilliant. Any other comments? Any other appealing up and coming society? Okay, it sounds like I'm fishing now, but I'm not. Any other interesting societies? Have you guys thought about joining? I don't know, archaeological societies, local history societies, kind of related, as I think Chris outlined.
It's strange, really. I mean, I send out a newsletter, what's called to my Featherstone Society, to about, I think it's about 83 people worldwide. Yet on my Facebook group, I've got 243. So that tells you maybe what the interest is, but who's interested in paying? Not many. That's what I think, anyway. They'll take it for free, but they're not.
I can't raise any interest in family history amongst those laws who are on Facebook.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. In the process of this members' websites, Chris and I have been working. I put my website on Chris's, and I mentioned it on Facebook, thinking we might get some traffic just to see what the effect was. And 4 people said, "Well, my grandfather's not on there." I said, "Well, why don't you send me it and I'll put it on?" So there is some interest, but no.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Getting folks to part with money is one thing. I think there's a broader interest in this stuff, but I genuinely think there needs to be let's say a multi-stage process. And let's just make it 2 stages just for the hell of it. I think you have to have an area that's available to the public that appeals to a broader audience who are maybe only interested in their particular slice through your one name study. And then there's another area where folks just, let's say, stick around for long enough and maybe can be converted. In other words, what I'd like to see the guild do is to have an area, a discussion area, call it what you will, available to the public where folks can, from family history societies, genealogists, people that have never been members of family history societies, can become aware, contribute to our individual studies if they wish, but then eventually make the decision that there are sufficient benefits in them joining the organisation. I do think that the process of recruiting folks takes much longer, and folks are much more discerning about what's in it for them, regardless of how cheap or incidental the fees are.
Maybe the suggestion, Bob, is that we have a ongoing rolling forum on Google Plus where members of the public can drop in, drop out, where they can come for advice and guidance in their research of their surnames from the Guild of One Name Studies.
Mm.
Do you mean a sort of open to the public?
An open forum that is here, that we are the Guild, we are making ourselves available to family history researchers, be they not members, so they could drop into, if we could publicise it well enough. Effectively, that's what Dear Mert does. That's what Pat Richley Erickson and our the group in America do. Russ Worthington works the technical side from New Jersey, as they say, and Pat runs the centre of it from Salt Lake City, where she lives. We have people across the states. We have one guy in Ireland, and we have a girlie in North Wales, and my good self. And we discuss genealogy. It's not specific to any one surname, but we help each other and help the community at large. And Pat does 2 other hangouts that I know of. One is Wacky Wednesday, which on a Wednesday night, it's very late for us, of course, it's nearly 2 a.m. for us, where they do more in depth on various subjects. And on a Sunday they do, on Saturday night they do genealogy game night, which at the moment is who's in my line. Well, the amount of information that comes out from trying to find the 20 questions as to who somebody was is amazing. You learn so much.
John, I've not heard of this before. What is Who's My Line? Can you give us an outline of? Is it like a quiz or is it?
It's a quiz. Yeah, it's
a quiz.
Yeah, I think they used to be on the radio.
What's My Line?
What's My Line? Yeah.
Yeah.
A long time ago, 100 years ago.
No, I remember the count 100 years ago.
Must be all of that. I'm sure I'm 150 years old. I feel it.
Well, thank you.
You're the new Doctor Who.
Well, thank you, folks. I'm going to stop the broadcast, but we can carry on chatting unless you've got anything you want to say on the record for the benefit of remote viewers. Okay, then I'm stopping the broadcast now. We can carry on chatting.